poor street boy thought he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He had stolen a necklace from one of the most feared Mafia bosses in the city. Everyone expected the boss to punish him immediately. But when the Mafia boss looked closely at the necklace in the boy's hand, his expression suddenly changed. Because the necklace wasn't just valuable. It carried a secret from his past that should have been impossible to find. And the boy holding it might not have been a stranger after all. Before we continue this unbelievable story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy powerful and emotional stories like this one. And I'd love to ask you something. Where are you watching from today? Drop your country and the current time in the comments below. It's always amazing to see how far these stories travel around the world. Now let's go back to the moment everything began. The moment a hungry street boy made a desperate decision and reached for the one necklace he should have never tried to steal. In one of the busiest parts of the city, where luxury cars passed tall glass buildings and expensive restaurants filled the streets with bright lights, there was a boy most people never noticed. His name was Leo. Leo was only 9 years old, but life had already taught him lessons no child should ever have to learn. Every morning, while other children were getting ready for school, Leo woke up on a thin piece of cardboard behind an old grocery store. The alley was cold, and the sound of traffic was his alarm clock. He had no home, no parents, and most days, no food. Leo spent his mornings walking through crowded streets, hoping someone might drop a coin or leave unfinished food behind. Sometimes he helped vendors carry boxes just to earn a small piece of bread. But today had been different. Today, he hadn't eaten anything. By the afternoon, the hunger in his stomach had become almost unbearable. Leo sat quietly near the entrance of a large restaurant, watching people walk in and out. Well-dressed men laughed loudly. Women in expensive clothes stepped out of luxury cars. The smell of roasted meat drifted through the air, making Leo's stomach twist painfully. He lowered his head, trying not to stare. People didn't like being stared at, and they especially didn't like poor street kids like him standing too close. Suddenly, a group of men stepped out of a black car that had just pulled up to the restaurant. The moment they appeared, the atmosphere around the entrance changed. The guard standing outside immediately straightened up. The restaurant manager rushed forward nervously. Leo noticed something else too. Everyone moved out of their way. At the center of the group was a tall man wearing a dark suit. His expression was calm but cold, and the way people looked at him told Leo something important. This man was powerful, very powerful. Leo didn't know his name, but many people in the city did. The man was Victor Kang, one of the most feared Mafia bosses in the entire region. As Victor stepped out of the car, something around his neck caught the sunlight. A gold necklace with a small, beautifully crafted pendant. It sparkled brightly for a moment. Leo's eyes followed it without thinking. To Victor, it was probably just an expensive piece of jewelry, but to Leo, it looked like food. Food for many days, maybe even weeks. Leo quickly looked away, shaking his head. Stealing was dangerous, very dangerous, especially from someone like that. But then his stomach growled loudly. The sound reminded him of something painful. Hunger didn't care about danger, and sometimes desperation made people do things they would never normally consider. Leo looked up again. The Mafia boss and his men were walking toward the restaurant entrance. The necklace still glimmered under the bright lights, and for the first time, a dangerous idea slowly began to form in the boy's mind. Leo tried to look away from the necklace. He really did. But the more he told himself not to think about it, the harder it became. The golden pendant sparkled every time the tall man moved. It swung slightly against the dark suit, catching the restaurant lights like a tiny sun. Leo swallowed. That necklace alone could probably buy more food than he had eaten in an entire year. But this wasn't just any man. Even Leo, who lived on the streets, knew when someone dangerous was nearby. The men surrounding the tall stranger walked with alert eyes and stiff shoulders. Their jackets hid something heavy at their waists. Security, bodyguards, people who wouldn't hesitate to grab a thief. Leo lowered his head again. Forget it, he told himself. Stealing from ordinary people was risky enough. Stealing from someone protected by men like that was almost impossible. Almost. But hunger has a way of whispering dangerous thoughts. Leo's stomach tightened painfully again, and his vision blurred for a moment. He hadn't eaten since yesterday morning. His legs felt weak. Across the street, a bakery window displayed fresh bread, golden and warm. The smell drifted through the air, making his chest ache. Leo clenched his fists. He didn't want to steal, but the city had taught him something cruel. If you didn't fight to survive, no one would help you. The restaurant doors opened again as Victor Kang and his men stepped inside. The entrance became crowded for a moment. A group of wealthy customers arrived at the same time, laughing loudly as they walked in. For a few seconds, the doorway became chaotic. People talking, waiters moving quickly, cars arriving. Leo noticed something. The tall man, Victor, had paused near the entrance, briefly distracted while speaking to the restaurant manager. One of his bodyguards turned to answer a phone call. Another stepped aside to let guests pass. For the first time, the necklace was within reach. Leo's heart began pounding so loudly he was sure everyone could hear it. "Don't do it," a voice inside his head warned. But another voice whispered something stronger. Food, warm food, real food. Leo took a slow step forward, then another. The crowd at the entrance shifted again, blocking the bodyguard's view for just a second. That single second was all Leo had. His small hand moved quickly, almost without thinking. The chain snapped softly between his fingers, and before anyone could react. The poor street boy had just stolen the necklace from one of the most feared Mafia bosses in the city. Leo turned and ran, but he didn't see the one person who had noticed everything, Victor Kang. And when the Mafia boss realized what had just happened, he slowly turned his head, his cold eyes locking onto the small boy disappearing into the crowd. For a brief moment, Victor Kang didn't move. The noise around him continued. People laughing, waiters rushing, cars arriving. But everything felt distant. His fingers instinctively touched his collar. Empty. The necklace was gone. A subtle shift passed through his expression. Not anger, not yet. Just calculation. Victor Kang had built his reputation on control. He didn't react emotionally. He observed. He analyzed. And then he acted. Slowly, his eyes scanned the entrance. And that's when he saw him. A small figure pushing through the crowd. A boy, running. Victor's gaze sharpened. The bodyguards immediately noticed the change in their boss's posture. "Boss?" one of them asked quietly. Victor didn't answer. Instead, he stepped forward calmly, not rushing, not shouting, but moving with purpose. "Stop him," he said in a low voice. Two bodyguards reacted instantly, pushing through the crowd. But Leo was fast. Fear gave him speed. The necklace was tightly clutched in his hand as he sprinted down the sidewalk. His heart felt like it would explode. He didn't dare look back. If they caught him, he didn't even want to imagine what would happen. Leo turned into a narrow alley between buildings. His lungs burned. The alley was familiar. He had hidden there before. Trash bins lined the walls. The ground was uneven, perfect for disappearing. He ducked behind a large dumpster and crouched low, holding his breath. Footsteps echoed outside. "Search the area," a deep voice commanded. Leo covered his mouth with his hand to stay silent. Through a crack in the wall, he saw two men walking past the alley entrance, scanning carefully. They weren't just searching, they were trained. Leo's hands trembled. He looked down at the necklace. It was heavier than he expected. The gold felt cold against his skin. For a moment, guilt flickered in his chest. He had never stolen something this important before. But then he remembered the empty alley where he slept, the cold nights, the hunger, the loneliness. This wasn't about greed, it was survival. The footsteps faded. Leo slowly stood up, preparing to run again. But suddenly, a shadow appeared at the entrance of the alley, tall, still, blocking the light. Leo froze. His heart stopped. Victor Kang stepped into the alley calmly, his expensive shoes pressing against the dirty ground. Behind him, the city lights shimmered. He didn't look angry. He didn't look rushed. He looked interested. Leo tightened his grip on the necklace, stepping backward until his back touched the wall. Victor stopped a few feet away. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. The Mafia boss studied the boy carefully. Not the necklace, the boy. And as Victor's eyes moved over Leo's face, something unexpected happened. His expression changed, not to rage, not to punishment, but to recognition. And in that quiet alley, the life of a poor street boy was about to change forever. Victor Kang didn't move. His sharp eyes remained fixed on the small boy clutching the stolen necklace. The alley smelled of garbage, wet concrete, and city smoke. But Victor didn't flinch. He wasn't angry. At least, not in the way anyone would expect. Leo pressed himself against the wall, shaking. The necklace felt heavier than ever in his hands, not because of the gold, but because of the weight of the man standing in front of him. Victor's reputation had followed him like a shadow across the city. People said he punished thieves harshly, even children. Leo had imagined jail, fists, or worse. But Victor only stared. "You know," Victor said slowly, his voice calm, but low enough to carry the weight of command. "Most people who take what isn't theirs don't make it out alive." Leo swallowed hard. His mouth went dry. I didn't mean to, sir," he stammered. Victor raised a hand, stopping him. "I didn't ask why." He bent slightly, bringing his face closer to Leo's. The boy flinched. "I'm asking who you are." Leo hesitated. No one had ever spoken to him this way. Not the police, not the rich men who threw coins his way for pity. I'm Leo," he whispered. Victor nodded slowly, as if testing the truth in the boy's eyes. "Leo," he repeated. The name rolled off his tongue like something familiar, almost echoing in the alley. "You steal because you need. I understand that. But survival has a price and luck is a dangerous thing." Leo's stomach twisted. I was hungry. Victor held up his hand again. "Enough." He paused, studying the boy. Then, unexpectedly, he said, "Give me the necklace." Leo's heart sank. He held it tighter. This could be it, the punishment, the end of everything. But instead of taking it, Victor smiled faintly. "Not like that," he said. "I want you to keep it, for now." Leo blinked, confused. "I keep it?" Victor crouched slightly so he could meet the boy's eyes directly. "Yes, but there's a condition. You work for me. You do as I say. You survive, and you learn." Leo's eyes widened. He had never been offered anything like this before. Work, guidance, not punishment. Victor stood up and straightened his suit. The shadowed alley seemed to brighten a little, as if the city itself was holding its breath. You could throw this away, run, go back to nothing. Or you could take the chance and change your life. The choice is yours, Leo. Leo looked at the necklace in his trembling hands, then back at the man whose name alone made the city tremble. The boy's life had been defined by hunger, fear, and survival. But in that moment, he realized something terrifying and thrilling. His life was about to change forever. And this time, it wouldn't just be survival. It would be power, secrets, and a world he had never imagined. Leo didn't understand how his life had changed so quickly. One moment, he was hiding in an alley, clutching a stolen necklace and expecting punishment. Now he was sitting inside a black luxury car. The leather seats felt softer than anything he had ever touched. Outside the window, the city lights blurred as the vehicle moved through traffic. Leo sat quietly, holding the necklace in his lap. Across from him, Victor Kang watched him without speaking. The other men in the car remained silent. No one dared to question their boss's decision. Finally, Leo gathered the courage to speak. "Are you going to call the police?" he asked softly. Victor didn't look away from him. "No." Leo blinked. "Then why am I here?" Victor leaned back slightly. "Because I saw something when I looked at you." Leo's heart beat faster. What? What did you see?" Victor paused. "I saw hunger," he said calmly. "Not greed. Hunger, there's a difference." Leo lowered his eyes. "I also saw fear," Victor continued. "But not the kind that makes someone weak. The kind that makes someone survive." The car slowed as they entered a private underground parking area beneath a tall building. Victor's headquarters. The doors opened. Leo hesitated. He had never entered a place like this before. Everything was clean, polished, and expensive. The lighting was bright but soft. Security guards stood at every corner. Victor stepped out first and motioned for Leo to follow. Inside the elevator, the silence felt heavy. Leo stared at his reflection in the mirror wall. Dirty clothes, small frame, nervous eyes. He didn't belong here. When the elevator doors opened, they entered a large office overlooking the city skyline. From this height, the world looked different, smaller. Victor walked to his desk and placed a folder down. He finally turned to Leo. "Listen carefully," he said. Leo nodded quickly. "You stole from me. That means you have courage. But courage without direction becomes destruction." Leo listened closely. "I don't punish children for surviving," Victor continued. "But I don't ignore mistakes either." He walked closer and gently took the necklace from Leo's hands. For a second, Leo thought he had lost it forever. But Victor didn't throw it away. Instead, he placed it inside a secure drawer. "This necklace is not ordinary," Victor said quietly. and neither are you." Leo looked confused. Victor studied him again, more carefully this time. "From today," he said firmly, "you will stay here. You will eat properly. You will learn discipline. And if you choose to, you can earn everything honestly." Leo's eyes widened. "Earn it?" "Yes." Victor's expression softened slightly. "I give chances rarely. You have one." Leo felt something strange in his chest. Hope. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about where to sleep tonight. He wasn't thinking about hunger. He was thinking about possibility. Outside the window, the city lights sparkled beneath them. And inside that office, a poor street boy had just stepped into a world of power, protection, and secrets that would soon reveal why that necklace mattered more than anyone realized. Leo spent the next few days in Victor's headquarters, learning things he never imagined. Meals were no longer scraps from the street. Clothes were clean, warm, and new. And slowly, the boy began to understand the rules of this dangerous new world. Victor watched him closely, testing not just his courage, but his judgment. He didn't rush him. He didn't push him too hard. But every lesson carried weight. Every action had consequences. One afternoon, Victor finally decided it was time. "Leo," he said, sitting behind his massive desk, "it's time you understand why that necklace mattered." Leo's stomach twisted nervously. He had assumed it was just expensive jewelry, valuable for gold alone. Victor reached into his drawer and pulled it out. The necklace gleamed under the soft office lights. But there was something unusual about the pendant. A faint engraving on the back caught Leo's eye, something he hadn't noticed before. Victor noticed him noticing. "You see this?" he asked, pointing to the tiny initials etched into the metal. Leo shook his head. "These initials," Victor said slowly, "belong to someone very close to me. Someone I thought I had lost a long time ago." Leo's eyes widened. "Lost?" Victor leaned back. "Years ago, this necklace was given to me by my younger sister before she disappeared. I believed it lost forever. But today, you, a hungry little boy, brought it back to me." Leo looked down at his hands. I didn't know." Victor's stern expression softened slightly. "No one expected you to. But your courage, your survival, it led this necklace back into my hands. And for that, you've earned my trust." For the first time, Leo understood. The theft that had seemed reckless, even dangerous, had turned into a chance. A chance not just for survival, but for respect, protection, and a future he had never imagined. Victor stood and walked over, placing a hand on Leo's shoulder. "You will keep learning. You will keep surviving. But now, you also understand that sometimes what seems like a mistake can become the key to everything." Leo smiled, the first real smile in years. The city outside the tall glass windows felt less threatening now. He wasn't just a street boy anymore. And as Victor watched him, a thought crossed his mind. The world was full of unpredictable surprises. A small act, a desperate decision, could change the course of lives, even his own. That night, as Leo looked at the necklace safely tucked into its drawer, he realized something else. Sometimes, the smallest people can make the biggest difference. And in that office high above the city, a bond formed between a feared Mafia boss and a little boy who had nothing. And in doing so, both of their lives would never be the same again.